Okay, good afternoon, Year 5. So today we're looking at a scientific vocabulary lesson in our flipped classroom video. So we're looking at controlled and normal variables. So these two different things, controlled variables and normal variables. Now, normal variables, just variables as they're called, is a word for a quantity or condition that can change. So these are words that do change. Now, as we see in this picture, if I move my head, the variable for our first picture is the color of each can. That's the thing that changes in each different quantity. The variable in my second picture is the size. We see our 4 strawberries. What has changed is their size. That means it's the variable. Now, finally, as you can see with my ice cream, the variable, the thing that has changed, what is different in each different ice cream is a flavor of the color. Now, variable is a word for a quantity or condition that can change. Excellent. Now, you should, after repeating that, we'll move on to our next type of variable. Now, these types of variables are called controlled variables. Now, controlled variables, these are variables that do not change. So they're the opposite of variables. So variables change, controlled variables do not change in an experiment. These are words that you'd find in an experiment. Now, here we can see in my experiment of does red light affect plant growth? The variable that changes is the light color, as we can see on the left-hand side. They are different. There is yellow light, and on the right-hand side, it's a red light. So that's a variable. That's the thing that does change. But the control variables, so the variables that do not change, is the water, soil, temperature, and whether it's the day or the night time when the experiment takes place. So what you need to remember when doing an experiment, variables do change, the thing you're testing, and controlled variables do not change. Now, why are variables and controlled variables important? So variables are important because we can experiment what effect something has within a scientific experiment. This can prove or disprove a scientific inquiry. For example, what material will create the most effective parachute material? So what do you think the variable is in this question? What are we changing each time? What are we going to test? What are we going to prove or disprove of our scientific inquiry? Remember, variables are things that's going to change. So the thing that's the variable within this question is the material. If you're asking what material will make the most effective parachute, you will have to test different materials to see what will be the most effective parachute. So the material is a variable, as you would change the material for each test to find which is the best parachute. Now, control variables are also very important. So whilst variables themselves allow us to prove or disprove things in science, control variables are important as we can make sure the test is fair. So if we didn't do this, it would come up with lots of problems. We'll talk about that in a second. If lots of variables were changing for each test of your experiment, the test would become as fair as you are not accurately measuring the variable. Remember, the variable is the thing that we change. If we change lots of different things, it would become unfair because you would not know what impact it's going to have. Let's say, for example, in my experiment for what will create the most effective parachute, what material will create the most effective parachute, I've got a paper parachute on the left and a plastic parachute on the right. So I've changed the material because that's the variable in this question. And say if I drop them from 2 different heights. So I've changed material, and I think it's going to be a fair experiment if one of them drop from the floor and another one from the top of this balcony. Would that be a fair experiment? No. So I'd need to make sure I'm making it fair. Now, to make sure I'm keeping it fair in this experiment, I keep the drop height the same. So maybe I'll drop them both from the balcony, and that would make it a fair experiment. It's important we only have one variable in each of our experiments, and then also lots of controlled variables so we make sure it's fair. Now, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoy your day.